Well, hello. This is Rochelle, and thank you for joining me here on the Creative Retreat YouTube channel. For this month, we are doing the devotional called Name Above All Names, which is a devotion by Jan Cookson for Creative Retreats, and it obviously speaking about Jesus's names, and it's the names that he speaks about himself. So if you look at some of the key verses that is discussed here, it really is beautiful how Jesus says, or he introduces himself as I am, and then gives us these few, and it's just a few of the names of God. It's not comprehensive for all of them at all, but I really needed to hear that because every time I hear about the names of God and who he is, and when it describes who he is, I realize that my life kind of works in I feel like I am, and then I list all these negative things instead of knowing who God is and then knowing that that is who he is in and through me, and then doing things become way more possible. So for this entry, I really wanted to do simple little clusters with the key kind of who I am, what God says who he is, little piece there, and using some of the elements that I pre-cut with my brother's scan and cut. So the first one is in John 6 verse 35. He says, I am the bread of life. So those moments where we feel empty, those moments where we feel like we can't, or that we don't have enough, Jesus says he is the bread of life. We can live on who he is. We don't need more than who he is. He is enough. He is enough to sustain us. The next one is in John 8, verse 12, and it speaks of the light of the world. And for each little cluster, I just used, I think it's a hazelnut gelato, and scribbled it onto a palette, added some water, did some splatters after I did the little cluster. I'm using the Orleans glue instead of the Tombow. My Tombow's run out, and South Africa is at a bit of a shortage of Tombow at the moment, so there's that. And so just making my little cluster, speaking about Jesus being the light of the world. So when I feel like I don't know where I'm going, I can always be sure and certain that Jesus is not caught off guard. He's not caught in the dark. He's not knowing. He knows. He's the light of the world. He shows the way. The next one is in John 10, verse 9 to 11. It speaks of Jesus being the gate. So he says, you enter through me. And then saying that he is the good shepherd. Those things for me has been so huge in that when I feel like I'm kind of out of bounds, when I feel like I'm not hearing his voice, it really is this passage in John 10 that speaks of us understanding the voice of God and hearing the voice of God. And it's not that audible, heavens open kind of voice. It's the still small voice that we learn to hear when we read the word. So very valuable and very precious to me is the reading of the word, and I love that we get all these tools to be able to read it better and easier and have it look pretty and all of that fun. The next one is in John 11, verse 25, and it says, I am the resurrection and the life. Phew. I know that this for me is such a relief because it means that I don't have to try and resurrect dead things or make life where there isn't. And so often we look at our situation and it seems dead. It seems like there's no hope for resurrection. And yet God is so firmly in control. And Jesus says that he is the resurrection. And we see this in who he is and dying on the cross and being raised to life. We see how he is true to his word and what his word says that he is. The next one is in John 14 and verse 6, and it speaks of Jesus being the way. So like with him being the light and guiding us or showing us the way through the darkness. It's this way through the darkness that Jesus shows us. He has already determined and knows the outcome. He knows the end from the beginning. He sees the way that we should go. So even if we couldn't see, he does, and he knows. So he knows the way, and he can see the way, and we don't need to fear or be fearful on this path as we follow him. He is that way for us. And then the last one that I'm going to do in this entry today, I'm going to use a journaling card because I've already journaled next to John 15 quite a lot. And this was actually a fun class that we did. But anyways, let me first draw this entry. You'll see on the back of the page. So these entries are all in John, and it's really, I like that it's so close together. Anyways, so there's the entry I've already done. And I'm going to kind of just bring in a blue heart there, one of these wonky hearts of the set, to just tie it all together. But for the meantime, I'm going to use this journaling card to journal from John 15, verse 1, where Jesus says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. How amazing that he completely takes care of all of our needs. He's the vine, he's the source, he's the place where we are connected to, where we tap into. And then he says that his Father gardens and prunes and cleans and pulls out the weeds and all of the stuff that we would need to survive in this garden, and more than just survive, thrive and be beautiful, and all of those things that is so important. So I want to encourage you today that even when you feel like you absolutely cannot, we tend to lose our focus where the focus should be. The focus should be on who he is. And then based on who he is in and through me, that is then what I can and cannot do. And I have news for you. Jesus says so we can do all things. We can do absolutely everything that we are required to do and asked to do in this life because of who Jesus is. So there's a quick collage of my 6 entries for this, and thank you for joining me. I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.